This is the internet's favourite camera. It's still not uncommon to see people paying hundreds of dollars more than the asking price. People say that it is the only camera you'll ever need, but that is a lie. The truth is, for 90% of people looking to buy this camera, the X100VI is not going to fix your photography problems. And in this video, I'm going to discuss why this camera actually might make you a worse photographer, not a better one, and why you're probably so much better off spending the money on a plane ticket instead. Let's get into it. So I've recently just got back from a trip to Thailand, insanely beautiful place. I went with just the one camera, the Fujifilm X100VI. And on that trip, there we were at sunset on the beach, and I actually stumbled across one of the coolest things that I've ever photographed. It was an impromptu kind of light show. They obviously do it pretty much every night on the beach for tourists, but I didn't know this was happening. Luckily, I had brought the X100VI with me, and it resulted in some of the best photos that I've ever taken. I mean, of course, it's sunset and you're photographing a fire show. You're going to end up with some bangers pretty much regardless of whether or not you're taking it on a phone or an X100VI or something far more professional. But like I said, these are some of the best photos I've ever taken, and a realization hit me. There was literally nothing about these photos that I actually needed the camera for. I could have spent money on a $400 camera and would have resulted in very similar images, and I bet if you put them side by side, you just would not be able to tell the difference. But this sort of brings me to my first trap, the camera obsession trap. I myself am super guilty of this as well. I have a whole variety of cameras. It's what I do for my job. I think all photographers in one way or another are kind of inclined to want to get that next piece of gear, but I am here to tell you, if you've been looking at the X100VI and you're sort of thinking that this is a camera you would like to buy, please don't do it with the perception that it's going to improve your photos, because that's not really true. If you don't have one of these cameras already, I would thoroughly recommend you actually look at some older models of the X100, something like the X100T or the X100F. All of those cameras are so usable still and really have a lot of the benefit that the X100 line has to offer. You could even go for something smaller, something more portable, like a Ricoh, like I have here. I'm sort of just saying there are far more affordable options, and ultimately a camera is not going to improve your photography. Next up is the megapixel trap. Is more resolution better? So the X100VI comes with a new sensor for the line. It is a 40 megapixel sensor. It is absolutely beautiful. However, this camera for me is a relatively casual camera. I have larger cameras for more professional work, yet this camera takes almost higher quality photos and higher resolution photos than all of them. Considering it's just an APS-C size sensor, you're ending up with ridiculously large file sizes. Due to the 40 megapixels, a standard JPEG is around 17 megabytes at maximum resolution, and RAW files, even if you're using a compressed variant, are 40 megabytes each. I shoot JPEG and RAW on this camera, and it's basically just for ease of use, because sometimes I want to share the photo straight away, or I obviously want the chance to be able to edit the RAWs in post afterwards. But when I'm doing this, I ended up with a folder which is basically like 150 gigabytes from just my holiday photos. And obviously when you do that a lot, that really adds up, adds a ton of data and a ton of processing into your workflow. And then all of these photos have to be stored somewhere, they have to go somewhere. And luckily that does bring us up to the sponsor of this video, Ugreen. And this is really cool because it is something which actually fixes this problem directly. So that is private, affordable storage for your photos and your files in a way that doesn't lock you into monthly subscription fees. This is the brand new Ugreen NAS. It's the model DH2300. It's a NAS system. This stands for Network Attached Storage. And if you don't know what that is, basically imagine a service like Google Drive or like Dropbox, and then imagine you basically were able to host your own system like that. It's your own private, secure cloud storage system. And if you've ever looked into NAS systems, you know that they can get expensive fast. The DH2300 flips that on its head with one simple purchase. You've basically got your own personal cloud system at home. You can get fully local private storage of up to 60 terabytes. That's enough for literally millions of documents and photos. And because there's no vendor lock-in for the hard drives that you use, you're able to interchangeably use any compatible hard drives. For me as a photographer and having to manage tons of photos, there's an AI-powered photo assistant which basically allows you to sort and organize your own photos. So going through and finding that one shot isn't complicated anymore. The Ugreen NAS is available now on Amazon and on the Ugreen website. Until December 1st, you can snag 25% off, so you can check out the top link in the description. Thank you to Ugreen for sponsoring this video, and back to the video. This is what I like to call the preciousness trap. And again, you're actually seeing that this list is a lot of the things that I am myself am very guilty of. I know from experience because I've just bought a Leica Q3 and it's one of my favorite cameras that I've ever owned. The only thing is, however, that camera is of course really expensive. The Fujifilm X100VI is certainly not cheap. And I think this actually can allow you to run into problems of not wanting to use your cameras. The Leica is a good example of this. If I'd have actually taken my Leica on holiday with me, I would have basically been able to get those photos with the best camera that I physically had access to. Obviously, like I say, I am in a fortunate position. I was able to bring the X100 because it's a little bit less expensive, or actually a lot less expensive, and luckily it is still a fantastic camera. But if I'd had the Leica with me, it would have obviously just been an experience which I would have never forgotten. This is sort of what I mean. The X100VI is still a really expensive camera. For a lot of people, especially if they are hobbyists, are going to be saving up for this camera for a long time. You basically want to be able to take this camera absolutely everywhere with you. And I think due to the price point and the availability, it can actually sometimes work in the opposite favor. You'll find yourself not wanting to take out your camera in certain situations. And if you had something much cheaper, much more rugged, you're able to throw it in your bag, bring it into situations and environments that you're just not going to be worried about your camera gear in. And that really is when you're going to be able to create the best images possible. And let's talk about 35mm, because 35 is my favorite focal length. I absolutely love it. I think that it is one of the best focal ranges for learning photography and to develop and practice your photography, but it is not for everyone and it is not for every situation. I'll give you an example. From this trip to Thailand, we went to this waterfall. It was amazing. It was beautiful, but I do not think the photos really do it justice for how it looked in real life. Obviously, a 35 is never going to be able to look fantastic in every single situation. That's sort of the point though. It's not wide enough for certain applications. I went to this waterfall, I was really excited to photograph it, and then just due to how far away I could get, it ended up being just a tad underwhelming. And if I'd had something a little bit wider, it would have resulted in much better images. Again, there are some options for different cameras which you're going to be able to spend considerably less than $1,600, and you'd probably be able to get 3 lenses and a camera body for cheaper than that. Lastly, this is just something which is a bit of a gripe for a camera so expensive. It's the autofocus. The X100VI autofocus is better than the X100V. It is of course the best autofocus available on the X100 line, however it is still not perfect. You do end up missing focus. Obviously it's going to happen when you are shooting photos, especially the volume that you tend to shoot on something like an X100. However, I do think for the price this is starting to get a little bit excessive. I think for example if you look at Sony, which all of my professional camera gear right now, I don't have to worry once about just having brilliant tracking autofocus on my cameras at all times. If I shoot photos, chances are I'm not going to miss focus, whereas on the X100VI I just really don't have that feeling. And finally we come to the opportunity cost. Hopefully by this point in the video you've sort of been thinking about this yourself, but the whole point is what else could you get for this money? This is not a cheap camera. It is not going to improve your photography if you are upgrading from something like a previous X100 generation. I think you would improve your photography exponentially if you took half the money that this camera costs and book a trip, book a flight, take intentional photography and start thinking about the photos that you are capturing. I think this is also just therapy for me. This is something which I am really guilty of. I also spend quite a bit of money on cameras, and I think from time to time I should take a step back, think about what's actually going to improve my photography more, and I think 9 times out of 10 that is going to be acquiring an experience or going on an intentional trip or experience to capture something as opposed to capturing the camera itself.